Hello, hello, hello. We are back with Chapter 8, Geometric Figures, discussing Lesson 3, Lines and Angle Relationships. So to get started, I want you to try, we're going to tell whether the lines appear to be parallel, perpendicular, skew. And so I want you to do 1, 2, 3, 4 on your own. So go ahead and press pause. When you get done with 1, 2, 3, and 4, press play, and we'll go over the answers. All right, see you in a bit. See you in a bit. All right, we are back. Let's go ahead and look at line AB and line DE. So AB is right here, and DE is right here. And it appears if those two lines are parallel. So what we would say is AB, line AB, is parallel to line DE. So make sure that you're writing using symbols like this. All right, if you got that one right, great job. Oh, excuse me. Okay, the next one we're going to look at would be a line EF. EF is right here. It's kind of this slanted line here. Ooh, that wasn't very good. So EF and CF. EF and CF. Well, they're definitely not parallel. They're going to intersect how AC and CF and CF are, and if you see, they intersect at and create a right angle. So what I'm going to say is, even though it's very difficult to see this side, they're going to intersect the same as these two. So I'm going to say that these two are perpendicular. So line EF is perpendicular to line CF. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So we have line AB here. Line AB and line AD. And it's pretty obvious that those are intersecting and those are perpendicular. So we're going to say line AB is perpendicular to line AD. Okay? Lastly, we have line BC, which would be right here, and line DE, which is all the way over there. Those aren't perpendicular, they're not parallel, so that would be an example of skew lines. Perfect. Okay, if you got all those right, great job. We're going to go ahead and move on to a different figure, this one right here. So tell whether the lines appear parallel, perpendicular, or skew. So I want you to go ahead and work out 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now it is time to pause your device, work out 5, 6, 7, and 8. And when you get done, press play, and we'll go over the answers. All right, good luck. You can do it. All right, I believe in you. All right, we're back. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first lines we're gonna look at would be BD here, BD, and DG. Now, it is super obvious that those two are perpendicular. So we're gonna write line BD is perpendicular to line DG. All right, let's move on. If you got that one right, great job. Let's move on to problem 6, AB and BD. AB and BD. So now we have AB and BD. And it looks to me that this line on this face would be going side to side. This would be going straight up and down. So this one would be perpendicular as well. You have to kind of look at it's the side of it, and it's the way that this picture is. But those would also be perpendicular. So we're going to say line AB is perpendicular to line BD. On to the next. DG and IJ. DG and IJ. So DG is right here. And IJ is right there. Those are not parallel. They're not perpendicular. They are not in the same plane. They don't intersect. They're never going to intersect. So those would be called skew lines. So if you got that one right, great job. Let's move on to the last one, 8, problem 8. So 8 says that AB, we're looking at AB here, and CD. And it's pretty obvious that those lines are parallel. So we're going to say that line AB is parallel to line CD. So if you got all of those right, wonderful job. All right, let's move on to the next problems. Here we have that line XY is parallel to line, line X is parallel to line Y, okay? We need to find the measures of each angle. So here we are, problem 9. We need to figure out what angle 1 is and angle 6 would be. We know that XY are parallel, so I'm going to go ahead and write in my little parallel mark. This is parallel to there. So since they are parallel, that means that the alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and corresponding angles are in effect. So let's look back here. We have angle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're trying to find out angle 1 and angle 6, okay? So far, all we have is this 95. What I notice is that angle 1 and angle 95, they're exterior angles, and they're on alternate sides of the transversal. That means that they are alternate exterior angles, which means that the measure of angle 1 is equal to 95 degrees. Perfect. That's the first one. Okay, now we need to determine the measure of angle 6. Okay, measure of angle 6. What I notice that 95 and angle 6 are adjacent angles because of these intersecting lines. So since they are adjacent, that means they're supplementary. So what I can say is that the measure of angle 6 plus 95 equals 180 degrees because supplementary angles means that they add up to 180 degrees. Now we're just going to try to isolate, use our algebra to get the measure of angle 6 by itself on this side of the equation. Right now it is not, but we can use our wonderful, magnificent algebra skills to isolate it and get it by itself. So that's what I'm going to do. 95 is related to the measure of angle 6 through addition. So I'm going to do the inverse operation of addition, which would be subtraction. I'm going to subtract by 95 to both sides, which means I end up with the measure of angle 6 equaling, I'm going to have to borrow, making that a 7. This is a 10. 10 take away 5 is 5. 17 take away 9 is 8, which means that the measure of angle 6 is equal to 85 degrees. All right, let's go ahead and move on to problem 10. All right, for problem 10, we need to go ahead and figure out what angle 4 and angle 8 are. We know that X and Y are parallel, so I'm going to go ahead and make my little parallel marks there. Okay, the only number that they give us is 63. So we want to look at how is 63 related to 4, how is 63 related to 8? And there's really no relationship between 63 and 8. However, 63 and 4 just so happen to be, because of these intersecting lines, they are adjacent angles, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. So we can say that the measure of angle 4 plus the 63 equals 180 degrees. They're supplementary, which means they equal 180 degrees. So because of that, we just need to go ahead and isolate measure of angle 4, get it by itself on this side of the equation. To do that, we can use our algebra. We're going to use the inverse operations of addition and subtract by 63 to both sides. Those cancel out. We're left with the measure of angle 4 equaling, and then we just need to do the subtraction. So I'm going to borrow from that 8, making that a 10 and that a 7. 10 take away 3 is 7. 7 take away 6 is 1. And then we just drop down that 1. So the measure of angle 4 ends up being 117 degrees. So I'm going to write that in there. I'm going to use a different color. 117 degrees. That's what the measure of angle 4 is. Now, what happens when we look at how 4 and 8 are connected, or what they have, what type of angles they are? And remember, these are parallel lines, which opens the door to the alternate interior angles, the alternate exterior angles, and the corresponding angles. So what I see about 4 and 8 is I see that they're on the same side of the transversal. Okay, they're on the same side of the transversal. Angle 4 is an interior angle, and angle 8 is an exterior angle on the same side. So these are corresponding angles, which means they're congruent. So there we go. The measure of angle 8 is equal to 117 degrees because of they're both measure of angle 4 and angle 8 are corresponding angles, which mean they're congruent. Perfect. Okay, on to problem 11. We know that X and Y, they are parallel. So I'm going to write in my little parallel marks here. This time I'm going to use 3 of them. Okay, and remember that parallel lines open the door to the alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and the corresponding angles. Okay, let's look at angle 4 and angle 6. The only number they give us is 87. Now, how is 87 related to 4? How is 87 related to 6? What I see is that 87 and 4 are, do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see that they are vertical angles, which mean that they're congruent? So we know that the measure of angle 4 is equal to 87 degrees because of the vertical angles. All right. Now what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at how we would try to relate this to 6. Now, there's nothing really straightforward, so we might have to go a roundabout way to figure out what angle 6 is, and we totally can do that. Okay, and we will. What do we know? We know that 87 is an interior angle. So what we could do is we know that it's an interior angle, and its alternate interior angle would be angle 2 right here on inside of these parallel lines. So that means that angle 2 is an alternate interior angle to 87, which means they are congruent. So angle 2 is equal to 87 degrees. All right? Now, since angle 2 and angle 6 are adjacent angles, that means they're supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So we can just go ahead and write an equation. We can say the measure of angle 6 plus 87 equals, 87 degrees equals 180. And then we just solve for the measure of angle 6 using our wonderful, magnificent algebra skills. So we need to get measure of angle 6 by itself, which means we need to get rid of this positive 87. So we're just going to subtract 87 to both sides of the equation. Those cancel out. We're left with measure of angle 6 equals, and then I'm just going to have to borrow, making that a 7 and this a 10. 10 take away 7 is 3. 17 take away 8 is 9. And we're left with the measure of angle 6 is equal to 93 degrees. Okay, so now it is your turn, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to try and figure out problems 12, 13, and 14. So go ahead and pause your device when you get done with those 3 problems. Press play and we'll talk about it. And make sure you write equations, show all your work, all that fun stuff. All right, we'll see you later. Well, we'll see you in a little bit. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, we are back. The problem states that line X is parallel to line Y. So I'm going to go ahead and write in my little parallel marks right here. We know that they're parallel, which means that opens the door to the alternate interior angles, the alternate exterior angles, and the corresponding angles. So always be on the lookout for those special types of angles which are congruent to each other. Okay, right here we have 58 degrees. We need to figure out what angle 2 and angle 4 are. Okay, what I notice about 58 is that it's an interior angle. And what I notice about 4 is it's also an interior angle, but it's an alternate interior angle because it's on the alternate side of this transversal. So what that means is that the measure of angle 4 is equal to 58 degrees. So if you got that one right, great job. We know that means we know that angle 4 is 58 degrees. And now we need to determine what 2 is. And because angle 4 and angle 2 are adjacent angles, that means they're supplementary angles, which means if you add them together, they equal 180 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and write an equation. So we're going to write the measure of angle 2 plus 58 degrees for measure of angle 4 is equal to 180 degrees. Now we're just going to go ahead and solve and figure out what the measure of angle 2 is, okay, by using our algebra skills. So we want to isolate it, get it by itself. That means we got to get rid of the 58. So right now, the 58 is related to the measure of angle of 2 by addition. So we're going to do the inverse operation of addition, which would be subtraction. So we're going to subtract both sides of the equation by 58. Positive 58 and a negative 58, those cancel out. And we are left with the measure of angle 2 equaling whatever that is. Okay, 0 is not big enough. I have to borrow from the 8, making that a 7, and this a 10. 10 take away 8 is 2. 7 take away 5 is 2, and drop down the 1. So there you have it. The measure of angle 2 is equal to 122 degrees. All right, if you got both of those right, wonderful, magnificent, you are amazing. Okay, on to problem 13. We know that X and Y are parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and write in my little parallel marks right here. This time I'm going to put 2 in there, 2 parallel marks, perfect. And we need to determine what the measure of angle 5 and the measure of angle 7. All we're given is 102. What do you see? What I see is that 102 and angle 5 are adjacent angles because of those intersecting, which means they add up to, they're supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and set up an equation. Let's go ahead and do it. So that means the measure of angle 5 plus 102 equals 180 degrees. Now all we need to do is just isolate measure of angle 5 and get it by itself using our wonderful algebra skills. Okay, let's do it. So we have to do the inverse operation of addition, which would be subtraction. We're going to subtract 102 to both sides. Those cancel. We're left with the measure of angle 5 equaling, have to borrow again, making that a 7, that a 10. 10 take away 2 is 8. 7 take away 0 is 7. So that means the measure of angle 5 is equal to 78 degrees. Woohoo! So now we know the measure of angle 5. but we need to find the measure of angle 7. Now, what I notice about the measure of angle 5 and the measure of angle 7 is that they are on the same side as a transversal. And this one's interior, and this one's exterior, which means they are corresponding angles, which means they're congruent. So that means if the measure of angle 5 is 78 degrees, it also means that the measure of angle 7 is also 78 degrees. So there we have it. The measure of angle 7 equals 78 degrees. So if you got that right, great job. On to problem 14. First off, we know that x and y are perpendicular, so I'm going to go ahead. They're not perpendicular, I'm sorry. X and y are parallel. They're parallel, so I'm going to write my little parallel marks here. Except this time I'm going to have 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. They're parallel. All right, they're happy little parallel lines. Okay, we need to figure out what 7 and 8 are. The only thing we have is 73. Okay, 73 degrees. But we do know that they're parallel, which means that opens the door to the alternate interior angles, the alternate exterior angles, and the corresponding angles. Okay. We have 73. 73 is a happy little angle right here. Let me give, oh no, I think 73 wants to be orange. Orange is kind of a happy color. So there's 73. Now, we're trying to look at how 7 or 8 is related to 73. And what I notice is that 73 and 7 and 8, 73 is an exterior angle. Outside, right? These are our parallel lines. So inside the parallel lines would be interior angles, but these are both outside. So 73 is an exterior angle, 7 is an exterior angle, and 8 is an exterior angle. But the problem with 7 is that it's not an alternate exterior angle. It's on the same side as the transversal. However, 8 is exterior and it's on alternate sides of the transversal, which means they are congruent. So that means that the measure of angle 8 is equal to 73 degrees. They are the same amount because of the alternate exterior angles. So we can say that this is 78 degrees. Now we need to determine what angle 7 is. So angle 7, angle 7, angle 7. What are we ever going to do with angle 7? Well, what I see is that 8 and 7, they are adjacent angles, which mean that they are supplementary, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. So there we have it. We have an equation. We can figure out what it is. Okay, let's go ahead and write it down. So I'm going to write that the measure of angle 7 plus 78 degrees is equal to 180. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use my wonderful, magnificent algebra skills to get measure of angle 7 by itself so we can determine what it is. But there's this 78, and it's related to measure of angle 7 through addition, so we have to do the inverse operation of addition, which would be subtracting both sides by 78. If we do that, positive 78 and negative 78, they cancel each other out, which means we're left with the measure of angle 7 on this side of the equation, and then we just have to do this little subtraction. 0, we can't do that. We have to borrow from the 8, making that a 7 and that a 10. 10 take away 8 is 2. 7 take away 7 is 0. And then we drop down the 1, which means that the measure of angle 7 is 102 degrees. So if you got all of those right, yoken ikemashita, you did a great job, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time.